This is the third video in the Using the Magenta Suite series. This video is Magenta Forms Designer, creating the scan template so your form can be scanned in the Remark Classic OMR software. The next video in the series is Remark Classic OMR, scanning some forms and getting some results. So we're going to start this video using the same form that we've used in the previous two videos, the one we created and have done some modifications to. And so to get started, we are planning to create the scan template file. The scan template file has an RCO extension and is the file that the Remark Classic OMR software uses to know how to scan your form. Where the bubbles are, what they mean, and all of that information, as well as the format and order of the information in the output data. And what I mean by that, we're going to switch over here to the Remark Classic OMR Data Center. This is the scanning program. This program scans forms and creates data in this data grid here. We do have a scan template loaded, and you can see these are the fields of data that we're going to be scanning in: an ID number, a date, and so forth. This is the order of the data. These are the data fields, and this is the order that they will be scanned. You do have control over this order as well as what you see here for answers, and we're going to be talking about that as we go through and create our scan template. So the first thing to do before you create your scan template is to go through and make sure that all your fields are linked properly. The link procedure allows you to group both question text and labels with the bubble areas. Okay, and if you've created your form with the Easy Form Design Wizard, your fields will already be linked, but just in case they're not, we're going to discuss linking just a little bit here. We're going to discuss it in two ways, for two kinds of questions, that is, multiple choice questions like this one, and then Likert style questions like this one down here. Now, I'm going to unlink this so that we can look at it. And what we have here are four separate bubble fields that created this field. We have labels here and question text. So what we have to do is select all of those things and link them together. So the easiest way to select any group of items is to put your cursor either left of the items or right of the items. I prefer right of the items a lot. And then you hold down the left mouse button and you drag the dotted box over all the areas. Now, anything that touches that dotted box will be selected. And so if I was just to do something like this, and even though I've only got part of the demographic questions text in this area, it selects it. And so I want to make sure that I don't touch anything that I don't want selected. Now, if I have touched something and that I don't want selected, one way to unselect it instead of starting over is to put your cursor over that item, hold down the Shift key, and click on it. That will select or deselect an item. In this case, if it's already selected, it deselects it, and that's what just happened. So now what we have is all of our bubble fields, the labels, and the question text selected. When you have multiple different items selected, you will see this Link Selected Buttons field. Link Selected Fields button, excuse me. But you can also go to the Format menu anytime and get the same thing here on the menu, Link Selected Fields. And that's what we're going to click on. When you link something, and there are scan fields involved, the Link Properties window will pop up. And the idea here is that you have some scan field properties that you can change. Generally, you don't need to change those properties, but if you needed to, they're here. And the idea is that you go down here to the labels and the questions and check to make sure everything looks the way it's supposed to. The labels are in the correct order and the question text is where it's supposed to be. If you find that some of those things aren't true, then the linking module has gotten confused as to where things are supposed to be, and so you would want to unlink it and try to figure out what was wrong with the what confused the linker. We'll talk a little more about that when we get to the Likert style questions. So I've checked this out. Everything looks good, so we can just click OK here, and we're ready. That question is ready to go. Okay. Let's assume here I'm going to unlink this, and we're going to change this item here. Instead of choose one, I'm going to go to the end here, and I'm going to say, instead of choose one, I'm going to change it to choose all that apply. Okay, we call this an all that apply question, meaning that more than one answer is allowed. And there are a number of different ways that you can get output for this question, and I'll discuss those here. I'm going to click OK. But when we link this, some things are going to change from the way we linked the other question, question 1. When we go up here and link this, there's one thing up here in this area of the window that's changed, and that is select the number of multiple selections. Now it selected 3, but you can up this to all 8, or I'm sorry, all 5. It selected the number of bubble fields we had, but we can set it to number 5. And that way you are allowed to do 5 selections. The output that will happen here with the scan field type selected as multiple and the number of multiple selections allowed, the output will have one column like this here, multiple choice 2, and all of the answers separated by commas and in parentheses will be entered into this column of data. Okay, so that's one way you can get your output for an all that apply question. If you go up here, you'll see there are some other scan field types. 2 of them apply to this kind of question. One, the Boolean type of question. If you select this, down here you will get 2 possible labels, and you can put in Y or N, 1 or 0, yes or no. You can put in whatever you like, but what will happen, instead of getting 1 column of data, and I'm going to go back over here to Remark Classic again, instead of getting 1 column of data for MC2, you will get 8 separate columns, and in each column there will be a Y or N, yes or no, 0 or 1, whatever you enter in each of those 8 columns. So you've more or less turned one question into 8 separate questions, and a lot of researchers like to see that kind of output. The third kind of output, we'll go back over here. The third kind of output is an all that apply. When you check that, you get 2 possibilities for 0 and 1. You really shouldn't change these. What you're going to get, well, actually, I think you can change these to Y or N if you like, but what you'll get is 1 column of data. I'm going to go back to Remark Classic again. You'd get 1 column of data like this, and you'd get a 0 or 1 for each of the possible answers. So if there were 5 possible answers, you get 5 zeros and 1s, 1 if the answer was marked, and 0 if the answer wasn't marked. So that is known. Click back over here to Magenta. That is known as an all that apply type. I'm just going to cancel here though, because we're going to leave it as a multiple with 5 possible responses allowed. Okay, so that is how you link 2 kinds of multiple choice questions. Now down here we're going to look at the Likert style questions, and I'm going to unlink this. And notice when I do that, all of the separate objects in this link appeared, except that please rate each of the following. This is not selected, and that is very much on purpose. This is one of those occasions where if I have this piece of text selected, that would confuse the linker. And what we're going to do is hold down the Shift key and select that, and that will select it along with everything else. And then we're going to click on the link selected fields, and you're going to see what kind of errors come up when we do this. number one, we get an error message saying there is a problem, and it's telling you that there's generally a problem when you see this kind of thing. And when you click OK, it pops up the link properties. And in the link properties, you can see that the labels are supposed to be strongly agree through strongly disagree here, and they're not. Those labels are down here in the question text. Anytime you see something in the extra text, that indicates an error. Okay, so what we can do here is cancel or click OK, and then unselect, and we can see that we have this extra question. Well, what's happening here is that the linker is trying to match the number of labels up here to the number of columns of bubbles, and the number of questions down here to the number of rows of bubbles. And when those two things don't match, that confuses the linking module. So we're going to hold down the Shift key, click on this piece of text to unselect it, and then when we relink, everything will come out correctly. And this is what it looks like. Strongly agree through strongly disagree for our labels, and then we have all of our questions down here. Okay, so that is what happens when you link in extraneous or extra text that's not necessary. Okay, and here, notice, let me go back to the link properties again. Notice that I didn't change anything up here. Everything up here is pretty much set the way it should be. There are a few properties here that sometimes you might need to change, but very rarely do you ever have to change anything up here in this area. Okay, let's click OK, and that is linking. So once you've gone through and linked all of your questions, and you can tell when you've linked something, because when you click anywhere in here on a bubble field, a text field, you only get one set of field markers or handles around the area. That indicates to you that there's a link. There's something else that indicates it very easily. If you look up here and see this button, Unlink Selected Fields, that guarantees you that somewhere on the workspace you have a link selected. When I click here on the last of the three Likert style questions, I can once again see I've got a link selected because here's this button, Unlink Selected Fields. Okay. Also, the link properties button will pop up. That's another indicator. So now that we've got everything linked, we need to go through and make sure that everything is named. All of the bubble fields are named. And when I click here on this link for the ID number, I can go up here and see that this link is called ID number. The names here are what's going to appear as your column headers. I'm going to click on Remark Classic again. They're the column headers you're going to see here above each of the columns. So that's the importance of labeling each of the bubble fields. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to click on all of them. Got date here just to make sure. I'm actually going to change some of these. I'm going to change this to MC1, just MC. Change this to MC. I'm going to change this to just Likert, and I'll show you why when we get a little farther. I'm going to change this to, well, this one to Likert, and I'm going to change this one to just MC. The reason being is that if you name things the same, and here we have a set of Likert style questions, here is the first part of that set. If we just name them Likert, then all of the questions will be numbered correctly. If we name them Likert 1, then we'll get, it will add the numbers, but we'll have Likert 1-1 and Likert 1-2 instead of just Likert 1, Likert 2, Likert 3. So it's a numbering reason that we take the numbers out of the actual names. So I'm going to click here on my Save Form because I've made some changes. I've changed the names. I've linked and unlinked things. And so now that we have all of these things named and linked, we are ready to create the scan template except for one other function. And up here in the scanning menu, there are 4 items on the scanning menu. These bottom 2, Launch the Template Editor and Scan Forms, startup modules in the Remark Classic software. This one starts the template editor, as it says. Scan Forms will start the Remark Classic Data Center. So, but
the items on this menu are meant to be used in the order they appear on the menu. So the first thing we're going to do is click on Set Up Order of Output Fields. The way you create your form and the way you create your fields may not have all of the fields in the correct order, okay? And here, they're actually not. I'm sorry, they are in the correct order. But if they weren't, we could rearrange the order here. Now, do not confuse this number here with order. This number is just showing that for our date, there are 4 separate bubble fields that are linked together, and it just happens to be link number 2. It doesn't in any way indicate this is the order. Okay, it's just showing that all of these date bubble fields are link number 2. For here, I've got 4 bubble fields for this multiple choice question, and they're all linked together, and they just happen to be link number 4. Here, I've got 3 bubble fields, and they're link number 5. Once again, this, you can see it right here. This is link number. It does not show order. Order is the physical order you see here. So if I wanted this Likert style set of questions to be up here after date, I would just physically drag it up here, and that changes the order of the output. And the order of the output, back over to Remark Classic, is just the physical order of these fields. So I've got ID number first, date second, multiple choice 1 third, multiple choice 2 fourth, and so on. And over here, back in Magenta, you're just changing the order. Now, I don't really want to change that order. I like the order they were in, so I'm just going to click cancel here. But once again, this is just giving you the ability to change the order of the output if you so desire. So I'm going to click cancel here. So that was the first part, the first option on the scanning menu. And the second one is actually creating the scan template. Okay, the scan template is a different file, and I'm going to click here. It's asking you where do you want to save this file to, and you can save it either to the standard templates folder under Remark Classic OMR 4, but you may not be able to save there. So it's often better sometimes to go up to areas where you are allowed to save and make separate directories under documents, say, and you might have I'm going to put in a new folder. You might have a new folder that's called Remark, or let's say Concord files. Okay, and so you might want to save all of your Concord files, both the FSL form file and the scan templates in here. So when I click OK, it goes into that folder that I just created, and then it'll save. Now, notice that I didn't change the base name. The base name of the file is Easy Form Survey, and it added the RCO extension because that identifies a Remark Classic scan template file. I left the base name of the file the same as my Magenta form file, which has an FSL extension. That way I know which scan template goes with which form file, because they are 2 separate files. And if I wanted to save this form into that same folder that I just created, I can do a file save as. Instead of saving it in the standard FSL directory under Magenta 7.0, which you may not be able to save to, we can go up here to Libraries, Documents, Concord Files. I'm sorry, this should be Magenta Files, not Concord Files, but I can change that. I'm going to save it here, and I can go to Documents and change this to Magenta Files. Sorry about that. I just made a minor mistake there. And then it's not going to let me change it now, but I could change it later. The reason it won't let me change it now is because I have this file open in that folder. Okay, but it should have been Magenta Files, not Concord files. So we've created the scan template now, and now we can go look at the template if we want to. You don't necessarily have to look at the template, but I just want to show you what it looks like. So we're going to launch the template editor, and because I left that base name the same, the software will load that template file. And you can see it right here. We're in the Remark Classic OMR template editor. and this is the file that we have open, and you can see the file down here. Here is side 1 with our ID number, our date. Here is our multiple choice question 1, multiple choice question 2, and here is our Likert first set of Likert style questions, and this is all of the questions on the front. And notice that all the spacing has disappeared. The scan template only cares, and the scanner itself only cares about how many timing marks. It doesn't care about the spacing in between. So I'm going to click back on Magenta. All of this spacing in between these fields disappears in the template because the scanner doesn't care about this spacing. It doesn't care at all what's in this spacing, so it just bunches everything together. And that's why the file looks a little odd here. And then if we click on side 2, you can see that we have the rest of our questions. And notice the numbering is from bottom to top. That's because this is the back side of the form, and it's just the way it's represented here in the template editor. So don't let that confuse you. And it's just because it's on the back side and the timing marks are on the right side of the form when you print it. Okay. So anyway, we don't really have to change anything in here. Just wanted to show you what the template editor looked like and what it does. And so when we click X here, then we're done. We've created our template and we are ready to scan some forms. So we would print out 5 or so or a few forms, and we would fill them out and scan them in. And that's what the next video deals with. So that concludes this video, which is Magenta Forms Designer, creating the scan template so your form can be scanned in the Remark Classic OMR software. And the next video in the series, in the Using the Magenta Suite series, is Remark Classic OMR, scanning some forms and getting some results. So thank you for watching.